Hello, my name is Chloe, welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing to you my September wrap-up. So it seems less than 10 minutes ago that I filmed my August wrap-up. Like, September has gone so quick. It hasn't been the best reading month for me. It's been decent. I read 15 books, some of which I really enjoyed. But I did have quite a lot of time off from work. So in my head, I wanted to read much more during that time. I haven't quite been successful just because I've been doing other things, really. So I have been vlogging pretty much my whole time off work, so I can link those vlogs down in the description for you if you're interested to just see what sort of things I've been doing instead of reading, which doesn't seem like too much, but I think I was just burning myself out on the need to go out for the day. But yeah, 15 books, not at all bad, and I did struggle to get into my reading at the start of the month, so this has all pretty much happened in the last 2.5 weeks of the month. As I said, 15 books, and my average rating comes out at a 3.6 stars. And the way that is made up, I had 2 books that I didn't rate, one 1.5 star book, 2 2-star books, 2 3.5 star books, 5 4-star books, 2 4.5 star books, and 1 5-star book. I can never understand those when someone says them out loud. One day I'm going to look into getting a little graphic that shows what I'm saying with the ratings. But just to start off, my books I didn't rate. The first one is Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. So I didn't rate this purely because I don't feel qualified to. I feel like this is a book where if I would have studied it in school, it would have been much easier for me to give this a numbered rating. But I enjoyed my time reading this, and I didn't have glaring issues, but I didn't want to just give it a 3-star because I had no opinion. I feel like I needed to have formed a better opinion, which I haven't done yet. Everyone and their mom, I think, knows the spoiler to this book, and that was my main issue with it, really. I knew what happened on the final page, so that really did bring the enjoyment down a bit. I think the shock factor would have been there if I didn't know the spoiler, but I would say anyone who does know that glaring spoiler and doesn't want to read the book because of that, because that was definitely my opinion, just give it a go anyway. It's very short and it is a good time. The next book I didn't rate was Smashing Saxons by Terry Deary. This is one of the Horrible Histories books. I do have it just over there and I didn't find it because I'm an idiot. But I haven't been rating the Horrible Histories books. I've been slowly working my way through the box set of 20 books because I'm reading, annotating them, and then I'm going to give them to Brittany for her and her kids to go through English history. Well, mostly English history. A lot of it is separate. I don't know why I'm going on a thing now. I'm making a point out of nothing. I'm very tired. It's very early in the morning when I'm filming this. So this book, Smashing Saxons, there was absolutely no problem with it, but just with the Horrible Histories ones, I haven't been giving them a numbered rating because I'm definitely not a child in an English history classroom. I am not the desired audience, and I really like the TV show, and I feel like that models with my opinions sometimes. Next, the 1.5 star book that I've read, I have already unhauled, and that is Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging by Louise Renison. So yeah, I gave this a 1.5 stars. This was poor, very poor. But a lot of people have said that they really enjoyed them as teenagers and they just haven't aged well. So I don't know whether if I would have read this, say 5 years ago, whether I would have thought it was one of the best books ever. I doubt it because of the way it was written. I do also think my opinion's been swayed by the movie. It's one of my favourite movies of all time. And this storyline doesn't really match up. The characters and the way their relationships develop don't really match up. It's just a few things, niggly things that when you're reading it, you're like, oh, that would have been better if you did this, and this would have been better if you did that, where it's not my place to say. But a lot of it was just a bit silly. And I know the movie was silly, but it felt a bit more mature than the silliness of the book. Saying that, I bought all 10 books, so I'm still working my way through them. It could just be some time until I get to the end, but these are very short, so they're just quick, pretty much in one sitting read. So let's hope I can do that with the rest of the series. Next, my 2-star books. So the first 2-star book I have is Vox by Christina Dolce, another one I've already got to unhaul. This was my buddy read with Emily over at Novell Novels for the month, and we both pretty much hated this book. It would have been a 1-star, save for the, there was a bit of a steamy romance thing going on, which I was really invested in. So this is a dystopian kind of society where women can only say 100 words a day. They have a tracker on their wrist, which I could just only picture as my Fitbit. It does look a little bit like a tag. But it was, they could only speak 100 words a day. And if they went over that, they got an electric shock, but quite high voltage. and this was put on all the little girls as well. Like, women just cannot speak, they can't have jobs, they can't do quite a lot of stuff. So it was set in this world, and my main issue with this book is that the author didn't really put too much work into creating this society. It was obviously just taking their opinions on America, on left versus right wing, on religion. It was very, I am not religious in myself, so I cannot take offence to it. But it was very anti-Christianity, and it was sort of saying this is where Christianity is going to go and this is what could happen, whereas I felt like it was a little bit, every time they tried to explain why the population had let this happen, the reason was, yeah, but we didn't think we'd let it happen, it just did. And I personally cannot see a world where women are just forced to stop speaking. I think we need a bit more of a factor than it's just happened. We need a bit more than that. And that was my main issue with this book. Just from taking what they took, their opinions on the current world, and putting it into this chaotic, horrible situation. Whereas I just think they needed a little more background. Next, I have This Monstrous Thing by Mackenzie Lee, which I was really upset about. Again, I've unhauled. I wanted big things for this book. This is a Frankenstein retelling, which already is very interesting, using clockwork machinery, similar to that from the Infernal Devices series. So that's why I was so excited, and I just didn't love it. It was more that in this world, in this time, our main character has reanimated his brother. So his brother is effectively Frankenstein's monster, and the book Frankenstein has been written at the same time, but it's like they've not worked from the model of Frankenstein. Frankenstein has been created. It was interesting. I guessed like the twists though. I wasn't fully invested in the characters. It was a good idea, it just didn't sit well with me. Next, we jump straight up to 3.5 stars. I seem to have skipped 3 stars this month. The first one being Always and Forever Lara Jean by Jenny Han. So this is the 3rd book in the To All the Boys I Loved Before series, and I just didn't really love it. It was very formulaic, I think I want to say. So obviously I can't spoil too much about what is happening in this book, but I will say that it's a YA contemporary about kids who are leaving high school and going to college and making all those sorts of decisions about where to go and what's most important in life and all of those sorts of things. My main problem with this book, even though it's not Jenny Han's intention, I'm sure, there were about 5 mentions in this tiny book to how long distance relationships can't work, and I was like, okay, respect your opinion, but can you shush now? Because if you're unaware, that is the situation I am in. Jenny Han has said some stuff before in her books that I don't believe is intended to cause offence to anybody, but I've not taken it personally well. For example, in the Summer I Turned Pretty series, the main character goes from being like the dorky, nerdy loser to this like really attractive girl, and pretty much all that happens is she gets rid of her glasses and loses a tiny bit of weight, and that's never sat quite well with me reading those not too long ago, but I know that would have impacted me a lot more as a younger teen. So yeah, there's a couple of things in this book that I didn't absolutely love, and I think that's what stopped me giving it a much higher rating. I also really had a good not connection, they weren't connecting back. I enjoyed the characters in the first 2 books. In this book, they just felt like a bit flat, like there was no more development on the characters because that's been done in the other books. This was just like a conclusion where I wanted still a little bit more. I feel like it's very short. There could have just been a couple of little new bits about the characters rather than just building on what we already know. But that's just me. Again, 3.5 stars. So 3 stars for me means it's fine. 4 stars is good. So 3.5. I still enjoyed it. I just had a couple of niggly issues. Next, a book I actually finished yesterday, so I should have some good opinions to give you. Who knows? Is The Whisper Man by Alex North. So I gave this 3.5 stars. The main problem with this book was my expectations going in. I had heard somebody refer to it as a horror, and this is about, it says, if you leave a door half open, soon you'll hear the whispers spoken. and then on the back, have you heard the whispers? So it's a serial killer story where the serial killer is now in prison, but abductions start happening again and little boys are killed. I had heard from somebody, I'm not sure what YouTuber it was, there was a YouTuber who described this as a horror. So I went in thinking that these new whispers were some sort of paranormal, Slender Man-ish style vibes, and that is not what it is. So I would definitely, I'm not going to read you the blurb because I don't like reading the blurb of thrillers before I went in, but I think if I would have in this situation, then I would have definitely got what I expected out of this book rather than this thing I've made up in my head that wasn't real. This is definitely a thriller, a mystery thriller about a serial killer in like a small town, killing and abducting children. So it is quite horrifying in some parts, but it's not a horror, it's definitely a thriller. I didn't really enjoy the first 250 pages of this. It's about a 400-page book. I started really enjoying it around, I'd probably say 325 pages. I was invested and I had to know what was going on. A few things made me like get chills. So 3 stars because it was fine. I think it would have stayed at like a 2.5, 3 stars if the first 250 pages would have carried on. But that thrill I got at the end of it had to bump it up to a 3.5 star, but not quite a 4. Now, onto my 4-star books. The first one, I have Prince Caspian by C.S. Lewis. So this is actually the 4th book in the Chronicles of Narnia, but in my head, it's always book number 2, even though it's definitely not, because it's film number 2. Prince Caspian is one of my favourite films of all time, and I'd never read the book, so I felt like I really owed it to myself. I have recently, I say recently, maybe May, I read The Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe, and I was very unsure on a rating, but reading this, I knew that I was absolutely in love with it. It's definitely, it reads as a children's book, but for like older children who've got a bit more of a grasp of like relationships, not romance relationships, just like relationships between people and connections and different language. Like it felt a little bit older, which I did really appreciate. And I just absolutely loved it. I don't even want to tell you, like I can't go into too much about what it's about. We're back in the world of Narnia with the kids being slightly older. They were in Narnia in book number 1. They were sent back to London in like Second World War time, and now they're back in Narnia to deal with a whole new set of issues. And I just love this. Next, I have The One by Maria Ralph, which I have unhauled, but not because I didn't enjoy it. So obviously still that we're in my 5-star ratings. I did enjoy The One, but it didn't feel like a book I could reread. So this was all about a girl, I can't remember her name, save my life, I do apologise. A woman rather, who's getting married, and just as she's getting close to the wedding, her ex-boyfriend that she hasn't heard from in years is back on the scene. And the whole premise is, what if the one before the one comes back? And the ex-boyfriend has a bit of a bombshell to drop that's going to change like everything she thought was true. It was a good time. I was very emotional. The last, 50 pages, I was crying. So 4 stars because of that. 5 stars, it wasn't amazing, but 4 stars for the pure fun and emotion I got out of this book. Next, I have our sister's approximately pick for the month of September, and that is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. So I definitely enjoyed this book, and we actually had our live show for this yesterday, so I will link that down in the description for you if you'd like to see more in-depth opinions. I gave this 4 stars because I really, really loved it, but I did have a slight issue at the end where I think it was all written a bit quickly and I didn't quite understand what was happening. I missed a few bits of important information which then didn't make the story make sense. So I just got a bit jumbled at the end, and that could have been me personally, or it could have been the writing style of this book, and it was all a bit rushed. I am going to reread this. I have a very nice hardback copy now. And I'm going to carry on reading the series. So I'm going to sit again with this book, with my highlighters, with my tabs, with all my pens, and really go slowly through it. I think I may have been in a slight rush for this, for the live show, and didn't fully appreciate what I was getting at the end. But 4 stars, still a really, really good rating. I just seem to have lost it at some point towards the end. And then another Sarah J. Maas book, I have Throne of Glass. This, again, really, really enjoyed. To me, I mean, it says on the front, hotter than the Hunger Games, which, you know, a bit arrogant. But I really thought this was the selection mixed in with the Hunger Games. That's what it felt like to me. So this is about a 18-year-old assassin called, I want to say Selena, but there's pronunciation guides in the back of ACOTAR, but there is not in this book. But I want to call her Selena. Apologies if everyone else says that differently. So she is rescued from like a prison work camp for her assassinness, and she is taken to the palace to become to join a competition with fellow assassins and criminals to become the king's personal assassin. And by doing that, she will work for a few years and then earn her freedom. So I really loved this. The whole competition aspect was one of my favourite things. I did go into this a little bit wary because a lot of people said I wasn't going to enjoy it, but turns out I absolutely loved it. And I do have the second book in the series, Crown of Midnight. I'm in no rush to get to it, but I know I can get to it eventually because I will be holding on to this. Next, I have one of my absolute childhood favourites, and that is Angel by Ale Weatherly. I read this, it has to have been about 2012, if not slightly earlier. The book came out in 2010, so let's say 2011, 2012 that I read this. And I thought back then it was absolutely amazing. I've owned the whole series since the early 2010s, and I've never carried on with them. I've never reread this because it just had this like pristine review in my mind of how this was one of the best books ever. So I did reread it this month and gave it 4 stars. I think if I would have reread it maybe 2-3 years ago, I probably would have given it 5 stars. It was very cliche, like insanely cliche. And I wouldn't have had an issue with that before. Obviously now I'm a bit more of a seasoned reader. I understand that it was a bit formulaic going through, but I did really have a good time. I thought the whole plot was really well thought out. There were no obvious holes. It was just such a fun time. And for like full-on enjoyment, I could give this 5 stars, but I do have to appreciate that it is not the best written thing in the world. Saying that, I have the next books, Angel Fire and Angel Fever, that I'd like to read soon. And I've never read them before, so I have no like standard in my head for them. So maybe they'll be 5 stars. Next, we have my 4.5 star reads. The first one being Scythe by Neil Shusterman. So this was nearly a 5 star. I actually can't tell you why it isn't a 5 star because I don't know. There was just something slightly missing on my own personal enjoyment of this book that stopped it being 5 stars. But Scythe, if you're unaware, is a dystopian world where everything is now perfect. Everything can be controlled. It's a perfect world. And the only way to die is to be gleaned by a professional scythe. So Rowan and Citra are brought in as apprentice scythes, and they are told they're going to have a competition to become the next scythe. I still don't know how you say it. It was insanely good. I didn't expect a lot of the things that happened. I was really invested in learning about this new world. I felt like it was very well set up as a dystopian world and how we would have got to that stage from present day. Really enjoyed it. There was just something like tiny missing. And that's a similar story for Beyond a Darkened Shore by Jessica Leake. Again, 4.5 stars. So you may have noticed this month I read a lot of fantasy, and this is not my typical YA contemporary month, which is maybe why I read less books this month. But Beyond a Darkened Shore had been on my list of books I'm daunted to read, but I had such an amazing time reading this. I enjoyed it so much. This is a world where, what is her name? Kira is a princess of a land called Maid, and it is getting invaded by the Northmen, who are like Vikings. And she feels the need to protect her land because she has a secret power where she can get into the minds of other people and control their actions. She's also spoken to by a crow, and this is a crow that has been warning her about incoming battles that are going to happen and how she can defeat them. But this crow tells her that she cannot kill the leader of the next lot of Northmen that come in, which she finds absolutely absurd, but she follows what the crow is telling her, and it becomes a giant hate to love romance on how to save the land of Mide and like the whole world. It was so good. Again, with this one, there was just something teeny stopping it from 5 stars, but I really enjoyed it. I really like the setup of this world. We learned a lot about the Vikings and like Valhalla and things like that, so I really loved it. And I believe there's another book. I don't think it's a sequel, but I feel like it's in the same universe, so I will definitely be keeping an eye out for that. I also just really love this copy. I have a signed book plate and everything, and I will not be getting rid of this anytime soon. And then my only 5-star book of this month is Ink by Alice Broadway. This was so good. Like, I can't hear enough people talking about this. So this again is a dystopian society where everything you do in life is tattooed on your skin. Your profession is even tattooed on your skin. And when you die, your skin is flayed and you are, well, your body is flayed? I don't know what the verb actually means. And it is turned into a book. So your family then keep the book and they can look through it and like remember your life. So in this book, our main character, whose name has completely escaped me, Leora, Leora's dad has died and his book has been created, but for some reason she is not able to keep it at home, and there is an investigation. Because if anyone ever does anything wrong, like their book is weighed, and then depending on the outcome of that, they might not be able to take it home. It's very complicated, but I absolutely loved it. This book I literally sat and read in pretty much one sitting. I really enjoyed it, and I couldn't find a single fault in this story, so it had to get 5 stars. So those are all the books I read in September. Please do no, it's not. Yes, it is September. So please do let me know if you've read any of these books, any of your opinions on them. I would love to talk them through with you because I just had such a great month with some of these. So I would love to see your guys' opinions, particularly on ACOTAR being our sister's approximately pick. If you had any opinions on that, please do head over to our live show. It will be up even though it's already happened, and you can definitely comment on that and get your opinions seen in that, because that would be lovely to have a bit more engagement over there. So on that note, that's all I have to say. So thank you so much for watching this video. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.